My name is Ernestine Middleton. I'm retired. I'm a human resource executive for state government, for lotteries. Marital status, right now I'm single. I have been divorced. I have been widowed. But, and what else did you wanted to know? I have two children, two adult children, Bakari Middleton and Zakiya Middleton. I was born in Washington, D.C., and I grew up in Washington, D.C. I had a couple of nicknames. My parents called me Teen, which I guess is just a little derivative of Ernestine. Then as I got older, my friends really started calling me Ernie. And people that know me real well call me Ernie. My family, my immediate family was small. It was just me and my two brothers. I'm the oldest child. And with all of those wonderful attributes as being the oldest. My extended family, because my family came from South Carolina and moved up to Washington, D.C. So I had lots of cousins and aunts and uncles, the Lees, that lived in the Washington, D.C. area. Initially, I was a very happy child. I mean, there was nothing to be, sad about. We were probably lower income, but we didn't know it because we had everything we needed. We had a place to live and food and we played outside. So the childhood was really initially very good. A good memory of my childhood, my 12th birthday. That was my favorite birthday. We had a swimming pool in our backyard, not an in-ground pool, but a little plastic pool, and my mother bought me graham crackers all day long. And to this day, that's my favorite birthday. As I think back on it, I think when I contracted polio, and there was a lot of things around that was painful for me. Now, I was very young. So for me, when they took all my toys and burned it, and I was in this stark white room, nobody could come in, and it made me feel like there was something wrong with me. She's isolated. Nobody could come in, not even my mother. And it was just a small window that they could look in and see me. And I didn't understand what was wrong. I was sitting on the steps playing with a bug, and my mother told me to come in the house. And when I went to get up to walk up the steps, I couldn't walk. And so my next memory was actually in that hospital room being isolated. And they burned my Tiny Tears doll, that tells you how old I am, and my Davy Crockett toys. And so, all my cousins and stuff, everybody was like, kind of. I can tell you from looking back on it, polio was a very devastating disease. I contracted it when millions of children contracted it. I was in a wheelchair. I had braces on my leg. I was paralyzed. The atmosphere to say there was no cure. It wasn't until years later that Dr. Jonas Salk came along and came out with the polio vaccine. But I had contracted it before then. So I remember I remember going down a hall in a wheelchair. And for a kid, in a wheelchair going down the hall, that was kind of fun, but still I couldn't walk. And I felt different from all of the other children. And so I remember that in Washington, there was a big boat. It must have been like a ship. And it was for the crippled children. And I remember that this big clown came up to the boat to help me in the wheelchair. And I remember saying, I can walk. So that's, I contracted this at 3 years old. So my memories are from 3 to about 4.5, almost 5, because I started school at 5. Yeah, the vaccination came later, but I had already contracted the disease. Yeah, fine. I mean, unless I tell you, nobody knows that I had polio. A lot of people you'll see around my age who had it during that time, one leg is shorter than the other. Some of them are still in a brace on their, on their leg, but I didn't suffer through that. Well, up until the time I got to be 8 years old, we used to go to church every Sunday. Everybody from the South, we were a Southern family, so everybody went to church. And something happened. Now, when I grew up, grown folks didn't tell you what was going on in the household. So I had to kind of pick up little bits at a time. And whatever happened, the pastor was running women and spending the church money. So my father took us out of church. And when I say took us out, he took us completely out. We could not go to church, and that was very traumatic for me because, I grew up during a time when you were in a neighborhood and you played outside and everybody did everything and you knew everybody. We were very settled in our neighborhoods. You started at kindergarten, you might go all the way to high school with some of these people. And so for me, it was very shameful that we didn't go to church. We couldn't talk about church. We couldn't talk about God. He told us that he was our God, that he would save me. We would have these 2 or 3 hour sessions where he would do nothing but sit there and just preach. And you could not move. You could not go to the bathroom. You couldn't move, literally. You had to sit there. And to say he meant well, yes, I understand it more as an adult, but as a child growing up, that was very difficult because like on holidays, Easter and Christmas and stuff, everybody's talking about, religious things and stuff, and we could not do that. We could not do it. We could not mention God in our house because he was God. Well, for me, it was like I had to keep that down. I was confused. I was really confused about who God was. I really was until a long time. And so, you're hearing your father talk about, I'm God and he's doing all these stories and stuff, and all your friends and everybody else is going to church. And then I had spiritual experiences that I couldn't understand. I mean, I was... this gets a little later in life, but I was talking to my best friends on the phone, and all of a sudden I could hear nothing but angelic voices. That's all I heard. And I was so puzzled by it. We went to the Lutheran church. We snuck over there, and we asked the pastor there or the priest there, and he didn't really give me a good explanation for it, but I never forgot it. I never forgot. I've had several in my life, and they stick with me. They're very. It was chaotic. My mother was a very strong-willed woman, but she was not well educated, so she had to basically keep peace in the house as much as she could. And so, she gave up on wanting to go to church. She gave up on that. But there were other things. And my father, he worked 2 jobs. And when I look back on, the man was just absolutely exhausted. He worked 2 jobs. Basically, I would say he put in probably 18, 19 hours a day. And so his attitude towards us was very harsh because he was tired. Now this is me talking about it as an adult, but as a child, it really did scar me a lot. I remember one particular incident. I was sitting on the porch and I was playing jacks. Here again, I'm telling you my age. I was playing jacks, and he came home, and when he got next to me, he said, "Get out of my way. You're never gonna be anything." And that thing stuck with me. Actually, it was a motivation for all of my future endeavors because, you get these soundtracks. You're never going to be anything. And it hurt. It hurt deeply. Well, that's a long story. When I started getting to be about 12, 13 years old, I started developing. And I started attracting the attention of boys. And of course, I was attracted to boys. And my father just went ballistic. And I had a cousin that, lo and behold, she messed around and got pregnant before she was married. And that put the whole family on lockdown. I mean, when I say lockdown, we were on lockdown. I was already on lockdown anyway, even though I was in Washington, D.C. I was raised as if I was a country girl in South Carolina, all those rules. And so when I went to Howard University, I had to go to a play at night and to do a critique. And so he told me that I had to be home by 11 o'clock. And I got home at 10. And he decided that, no, I told you to be home at 9 and get out my house. And he put me out. And this was not the first time he had put me out. He put me out, which caused a lot of friction with my mother, and just, you know, here I am, I'm out the house, and I think I was about 18 years old. And so what happened was my mother tried to make it right. She tried to keep peace. So she talked my then boyfriend into, first she tried to get me to get an apartment with my best friend. Well, my best friend couldn't leave home, you know, because she had her own family and stuff. So that didn't work. So then she talked my boyfriend into, well, y'all need to get married. And that was not the right thing to do. But I was an obedient child, you know. I did things even though they weren't in the best interest of me and they weren't the things that I wanted to do. So I got married. But before I got married, I tried to climb out the window. Here I am in this long white gown, the church full of people, and I'm trying to climb out, me and my best friend. We're trying to figure out how we can climb out this window and leave everybody right in there. But anyway, I did go ahead and get married, and it did not work. He started cheating and that kind of stuff. So basically, I think I was in my senior year at Howard when I left Washington, D.C., and I moved to New Jersey. I moved away on purpose because everything around me caused chaos. My father wanted me to be a doctor. He wanted the very, very best, but he did not know how to motivate you to be the best. So he would do what I call reverse psychology. You know, you're not going to be anything. If I had your opportunities, you know, it would take 10 people to get to me, and just all kinds of negative stuff. He thought I wasn't going to finish college, and one time he took I don't know if you remember Curvy vacuum cleaner cords, but they're very thick. And I think I was either a sophomore, and he beat me with the Curvy vacuum cleaner cord. The webs were so bad on my back, I could not finish taking swimming. You couldn't graduate from Howard unless you could swim. So that was a dilemma. But it was just that kind of chaos all the time. I remember sitting at the bottom of the stairs and listening to my parents argue about me. And I couldn't let them know I was listening. So that's when I started learning to hold things in. And so I held the tears in, I held the pain in, and I acted like, you know, it was okay. But I was really, really hurting because this was tearing my family up, you know. And over what? You know, I just couldn't figure it out. I wasn't a bad girl. I wasn't doing anything. I mean, God knows that my father drilled in my head, if you don't, without your reputation, you're nothing. You know, a girl had to have a reputation. And not a boy, but a girl. You know, your reputation is everything. So when the marriage fell and all that stuff, I just moved I had a cousin that was living in Newark, New Jersey. And I left. And I got there, and she had one canned good, and she didn't have a can opener to open that up with. But we had a wonderful time together. I just really did. One of the beliefs that was formed in me early on was that I wasn't good enough. I really wasn't good enough. You know, you go back to the polio, there's something wrong with her. Then you go through the whole teenage trauma of, you know, Lord knows you just cannot even be around a boy to think about getting pregnant or anything like that. I mean, and that wasn't even an issue, but all of those things just kept me kind of wound, kind of tight, that I wasn't good enough, I didn't look good enough, you know, just that was the belief that really kind of, what drove me to be successful was actually trying to prove my father wrong. I mean, that was my motivation. I had a drive to always excel. And I was determined that I was going to be a doctor. Maybe not an MD, but I do have a doctorate degree. And I just kept at it, and I worked hard. And I ended up opening up a lot of doors. I was the first of a lot of things, especially in state government and stuff. And the catalyst was trying to please him, to make him proud of me. Everything I would get, any kind of praise, I sent it back home, you know, still trying to please my father. Well, when I was young and single and I was living in New Jersey, but we would go to New York a lot. I had a ball. It's almost like someone takes the shackles off of you. And I mean, for 5 years, I dated, I partied, all the things I could not do as a young woman growing up, as a teenager. I did all of those things. I dated guys, all kinds of guys. Some of them, a couple of them were very wealthy. I dated one that was very closely related to a superstar. And I just had fun. I really did. I just had fun, and it was more of my personality to be upbeat and bubbly and stuff like that, and just party.
So,
well, I had another first cousin, and she kept talking about her husband. Troy this and Troy that. Troy was wonderful. Troy. I said, does he have any brothers? You know? And sure enough, he had a brother, Ernestine Middleton. And that, he was absolutely, if there's such a thing as a soulmate, he was my soulmate. He was the love of my life. We met, and he was working upstate New York, and I was in New Jersey. We went up there, and I went up there with one of my boyfriends. and we just kind of hit it off, you know. And so he moved down here to get into broadcast radio. He worked at WIC radio and stuff. And I came down for a wedding. And I sent him a little fresh note that I started to stop by or something. Now, I mailed it when I got back to New Jersey, you know. But that started us talking, the long distance stuff. And after about, I think we dated for about 2 years, we got married, and that was just absolutely wonderful. First of all, what I'm attracted to is intelligent. He was very intelligent. He had a sense of who he is, who he was. He was very involved in the community and very proud of being a black man. And he had a wonderful sense of humor. So, and he was very easy on the eye. He was about 6'2" or 6'3", you know, and built and all that kind of stuff just attracted me. But I knew he was the one when we went to see this movie. And in the movie, this lady, a black woman, took her child and left it at the foot of a fireplace or someplace. Not a fireplace, a firehouse. And we both agreed that's not the type of image that we wanted to see. So we really started clicking on a lot of stuff. He had dated a lot of other women, but they didn't have what he called a consciousness. I would sit there and listen to Malcolm X, you know, speaks on 4th of July with him, and we'd have wonderful conversations back and forth. So we had a lot in common. That was, well, I was coming down from, he was living in South Carolina. I was coming down from New Jersey, coming down, and he hadn't said anything. And I asked him, I said, where is this going? And he said, when I'm ready to ask someone to marry me, I'll do the asking. Hurt my feelings. I won't tell you what I said, but when I went back to New Jersey, I started dating everybody. I said, the last thing I do, I'm gonna get over this man. And that was, I think that was around the 4th of July. He called me to come back down Christmas, and here I go. Come right on back down to South Carolina Christmas. And he took me to meet his mother. I still didn't know anything. We're on our way back from Pineville in the car, and he's driving. I'm sitting over there, and he asked me to marry him. I said, stop the car. What did you say? Pull over. So he stopped the car, pulled over, and properly asked me to marry him. And I'll tell you a funny story. When we got back, I said, what about my engagement ring? He said, you want a diamond, and the brothers in South Africa are over there, you know, suffering? I said, the diamond I want is in the store. It's not in South Africa. So from that, we really did have a wonderful relationship.
So you got married.
We got married, and that was wonderful. I think we kind of planned for Bakari because we were newly married and stuff, so we wanted to get pregnant and stuff. It took about 2 years. I got married in 78, and Bakari was born in 80. So we were very, very happy. Very happy. Matter of fact, I was eating for 2. That's when I first started my weight. That was difficult. One of the things was I still had that tape running in my head about church. So here I am, a grown woman with a son. I still did not let my father know that I was going to church. But I wanted to find God. So I went on this journey to find God. You know, not that he was lost, but in my mind he was lost. And so Listerveld and I agreed with that. He wanted to know more about African history and that sort of thing. And so he went in that direction. He grew up in church, you know. I was the one that stopped him from going to church. I wanted to stay home on Sundays. But anyway, that's another story. But he went and he pursued African history and his television show and did one, and I pursued God. Well, we started to build a home. And when it first started, he took me all the way out to someplace, I think it was Gadsden or somewhere. And we were looking, because he grew up in the country. And we were looking at land and property and stuff. And we went out there, and the house was up on bricks, and you could see all up under the house. And chickens were running around the yard, and the tears just started rolling down my face. I said, Lord, I just married this man. I'm about to leave him right here because I am not living here. You know, I was a city girl. But we eventually found some property out in Blythewood, and he built our house. He literally built it himself. Yeah. And then as he was building the house, he started getting pain in his back. And I remember one of our anniversaries, he was in traction at the hospital. And long story short, he ended up with multiple myeloma. He was, at the time, he was 39 years old. And we fought together for about 4.5 years. And then he transitioned. When he passed, I was 44. My faith grew by leaps and bounds because I really believed with all my heart and everything that was in me that God could heal him and make him whole again. And I carried him a lot on my faith. And I remember one time being in the bed, and something came on TV about cancer, and God told me, you can't carry him this time. It's going to have to be on his faith. And so even through that whole period of being a caregiver and really doing things that you would never think that you would have to do I did whatever I had to do to help him, and I mean everything. And some of it was very difficult. It was difficult seeing him going from a very robust man down to somebody that was very small. There was this, I thought it was a brown washcloth on the back of his head, and after he passed, I found out that was a roll of his skin that had come up. So it was, there's no words to really describe the pain and the suffering that we both went through, because we tried. He went through Arkansas to the clinic out there, or the hospital out there. He had stem cell transplants. We had a period of remission, and then it came back. He was, at the time, he was doing speaking engagements for major national conventions. The last one was the Black Child Development Center. And we were getting ready to go to DC to do that. And he just went in for a checkup. And I was sitting out in the car reading, waiting to exhale. And the nurse came and she knocked on the window and asked me to come in. And so when I went in and I looked at Listerveld, he was almost sliding down the wall. And I knew. It had come back. And it had come back with a vengeance. Yeah. What was life like as a young woman with 2 children to raise? It was challenging. One of the things that I did not do that I regret doing, I should have gotten into therapy, because we were literally one. And I felt like when he died, a part of me died. But yet I still had 2 children I had to take care of. So I'm torn. I've lost something major in my life, and I'm still trying to raise my kids. And I've been taught not to show my emotions. So I held in a lot of stuff. I only cried one time at his funeral, and that's when we got back to the house, and everybody was sitting around and telling me whatever people say is going to be all right, and I just broke out. I mean, but after that, no more. And that was not proper grieving. I did not grieve properly. I think it was about 15 years before I really came to grips with the loss of Listerveld. Everything was surrounding that. And I tried to do my very best with raising my kids. I made sure that they had everything they needed. And we were tremendously blessed. I remember going and being in the hospital, and he was still in ICU. And the finance department called me downstairs. And they told me that his insurance he had $1 million worth of insurance, and it had been exhausted. And they told me that they were going to take my house. They would leave me with a car, but we owed $750,000 in medical bills. Now, these people had harassed me about $1,500 because I remember getting some medication for him, and that thing was $50 a pill. And we didn't have a lot of money, And so anyway, long story short, God made me a promise, and he lived up to it. That medical bill, that $750,000, was totally wiped out. I didn't have to pay a dime. I didn't lose a house. And I had 2 houses at the time. I had the house he built and the house on Lorick. And we did well with that. But still trying to raise my children, trying to keep up a good front. I was working. I had to work because we lost, whole income. And the jobs that I had were jobs in management and administration. And so I was basically the only black female. So you just couldn't leave to go say, well, they start a meeting at 4 o'clock. I got to pick up my baby at 5:30. So it was a lot of those kind of things that I had to go through, but I did make it through. I did make it through. I was hopeful. At first, I was just anything that had on pants. I was just looking at him, just hoping, I could find the love, the kind of love that I had. I mean, people will tell you, we did everything together. You see one, you see the other. We laughed a lot in our marriage, People used to ask me, do y'all laugh all the time? But that's the way we were. And I tell people this, and sometimes they shake their head. We were married 18 years. We had 6 arguments. 6. And one of them, I remember we got a little loud. Now, we never cursed at each other. We never disrespected each other. But we got loud. And Bakari and Zakiya came running down the steps because they had never heard our voices raised. And so I looked for that. My standard of love and marriage had been set based on what I knew. I knew someone that was faithful. I knew someone that loved me, someone that provided, that sort of thing. So that's what I was looking for. Yeah, I found something. I did find, I did get married again. I hesitate because it's hard for me to say I found love again. I loved, but the person that I married was not the person that I dated for 2 years. Totally opposite. And it became very clear after 4 months. I don't know if people are familiar with narcissists. But narcissists are not just people that think they're all this. They are very manipulative people. They will gaslight you. They will try to make you feel that you are less than because of their insecurities. They will try to make you feel that you're crazy, that you're losing your mind. I mean, he used to say stuff like, well, I heard that the word on the street is that you're going to lunch every day with this man. I was sitting in the house. I was retired. I wasn't moving anywhere. The word on the street is this, and the word on the street is that. And so we went through the counseling and all of that. None of that helped resolve the issue because he was insecure in who he was. And I was not the type of woman that he was accustomed to. He was accustomed to someone who was very needy and that, like his son told me, someone that he wanted to be worshipped. Well, he came to the wrong place. Worship belongs only to God. And even when you're with somebody, you can love them a lot and care for them a lot and do things for them, but you don't revere them in the same way to the point where you lose yourself. And so it really got really ugly. The marriage was about 28 months, and I think I stayed 28 months, and then you have to wait a year, to be separated. I didn't go into infidelity or any of the other crazy stuff. I just wanted out, and that was what I did. I tell you the truth, I feel pretty good. I really do. I remember just a couple weeks ago, I was by myself and I heard what I call God whispers. And he said that a form of peace is the difference between being alone and lonely. It's a form of peace. And when you have that peace, you can overcome a lot of things. Now, there are times when I do get lonely. And there's times when I think about, remarrying and stuff. And if that comes, I'm open for it. But my trust issues have been damaged severely because I trusted this man. I really did. He portrayed himself to be one thing, and I found him to be totally, totally different. One of the things I would say to a younger version of myself would be to really rely on your internal instincts, the Spirit of God that speaks to you. Because I made some mistakes. When I got married that first time, that was my mother's decision. That was not my decision. But I had to live with the consequences of that. You know, when I got married to this last time, you know, I'm in a bubble thinking all that is being presented to me is what it actually is, and I did not spend the time to properly seek out God to find out, is this the man that I should marry? Because if I had done that, I would have been told resoundingly no. For generations watching this, I would just like to say that give yourself some flexibility in life. You know, we can have our plans and what we want to do and how we want to do it, but always have a backup plan, another way of approaching things. Keep an open mind about things, and definitely seek godly counsel. Not that you do what everybody tells you to do, and not that you tell everybody your business, but you need to make sure that you're making sound decisions and have a way of, if this doesn't work, then I can do this or do that. That's what, you know, I think would carry people a long way, being young and not really knowing, not having the experience. There's a lot of wisdom from older people that you can benefit from. So when you listen to their wisdom and you listen to their experiences, that benefits you. And that's really why I'm doing this, you know, to benefit other people. If this was my very last conversation, what I would say to people, and I don't say this as any way of cliche or trying to be holier than thou, trust God. Trust God. If I listened to what my heart is trying to tell me, I would let go of some of those old tapes that still kind of run sometimes, you know, that you're not quite good enough, you know. I would let those things go, and to realize that I can do anything. I can do anything I set my mind to. I did it on my job. Anytime they gave me an assignment, something to do, I do it. But when it comes to something that I generate, it's a little hesitation in it. So what I know for sure is that life is a gift. It's short. It should be well lived.